We're back. I do not know where the day has gone. It was really gone by fast, and actually everything's gone relatively smoothly today. So Ken, thanks for joining us. You are certainly not least, and I'm going to just hand it over to you and let you get to it.
Great. Thanks, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a great day so far. So we'll jump into this. We are Paracosma. We're an augmented and virtual reality services provider. We do AR and VR application development and 3D content creation, including 3D modeling, 360 videos, production and distribution. And so based on that, to paraphrase BASF, we're not the healthcare application you use, but we're making a lot of healthcare applications better for our clients. We have received a lot of recognition over the years since we were founded in 2016 as one of the best AR/VR solution providers worldwide, one of the most innovative, and so forth. So we're very pleased with our progress and success in that regard. We're also members of all the leading AR/VR associations, including the International VR for Healthcare Association, one of the best out there, I must say, as well as others. This is our team circa July of last year in the bottom picture. We had about 50 people at our offsite in Kathmandu, Nepal. Now we're over 70 people. About 45 of those are artists and 35 or 30 engineers and developers. As I said, we make AR/VR applications. This was a training event that we've produced now. We're on our third year with 50 participants and 50 iPads and 50 Oculus Go headsets. So very large scale in-person training event. But we also make models, 3D models. So this is a hospital bed, obviously, that we made for Ursa Leo. Ursa Leo is an Internet of Things company. And so we make digital twins, which are virtual replicas of physical facilities, anything from oil refineries to greenhouses to hospital beds for their clients that are showing the data on those devices. So this is actually a fully animated bed, so you can raise it, lower it, and so forth. So we can recreate hospitals or medical settings through our modeling. And these models are often used for photography replacement. So instead of setting up a studio and creating a scene and taking pictures, you can actually create renderings from 3D models that can replace photography. We also have a 360 distribution platform. So I've met a number of groups in healthcare that are either filming emergency room scenarios or medical procedures. They can't just publish those videos to YouTube. Our platform allows you to have a secure venue to upload the videos, multiple videos to a page where you can control access to just doctors, nurses, students, and so forth. We've also sold our 360 videos for relaxation and health. This was a spa company, actually, for watching videos while you relax as you get your massage. But we've also sold 360 videos to AARP. The AARP Alcove app is really a phenomenal app. It's now available for Quest or Go and soon Quest. It allows families, grandparents, parents, children to connect in a VR environment, in a VR home. And in that home, you can go visit foreign lands through 360 videos. You can access different sharing applications to share with your relatives. One of the things we've been making are brain games for their Staying Fit program. So this was at CES in Las Vegas last year or earlier this year. Since then, we've produced over 40 brain games that will become part of their Alcove application, allow you to improve your memory, your health, your fitness, your sharpness, and track that over time through the Alcove app and eventually a standalone brain game app as well. We've also made augmented reality versions of these applications for AARP. This was demoing again at CES. a multi-user, could be multi-generational play space to share and interact with your relatives. We've also done a VR surgery application for laparoscopic surgery for gallbladder removal. This, of course, is a surgery theater. If you try and do surgery in VR, you run into a lot of problems. First off, you have binocular vision in 3D, so it's hugely performance intensive. But also 3D models are just a balloon. They're just an empty shell. So if you want to use physics-based production of your VR application, you need to create tetrahedrons and other solid surfaces if you want to do dissection and things like this. For our gallbladder removal application, we had to break it into 4 processes. First, peeling back and removing the fat from around the ducts connecting the gallbladder. Then in the lower left, clipping off the ducts in order to dissect and cut the ducts in the upper right, and then finally remove the gallbladder. So this is very difficult advanced work in terms of what's possible with VR today. Some of this was physics-based, some of it was animation-based, depending on what we could do to make the application work. And these are all problems that we figure out for the clients as the technology provider, the solutions provider. When we did our VR surgery app, a lot of people asked about haptics and force feedback, how you could sense what you were doing, because sense of touch is very important for surgeons. We have hopefully soon to be announced partnership with Haptics, which is one of the most advanced haptic glove companies in the world. Eventually they'll do full exoskeletons and full body haptics. Their initial product are gloves, which provide both sense of touch, and so you can very delicately feel the surfaces you're touching, but also force feedback. So if you close your hand, it will stop closing when you reach the surfaces of the object you're touching. So very advanced haptics, very expensive haptics, but these are also suitable for medical applications such as surgery training. This is myself using one of their robotic demonstrations of controlling, using the haptic gloves to control robotic arms and hands. We are actually working on this ourselves. We have a team in the ANA Avatar X Prize competition, which is an X Prize competition to create telepresence across a remote distance, in which with a VR headset, with a feeling of immersion and presence, you can control a robotic avatar in the other location, provide healthcare services, provide response services for telemedicine, for disaster response, for other services. So we'll be developing and are developing everything from the haptic gloves to the visualization capabilities, the spatial awareness, and so forth for that project. A few months ago, 5 months ago almost exactly, on March 2nd, I presented at the International VR for Healthcare Association conference in Nashville. It was one of the last conferences I attended, or almost anyone attended, in the world. At that time, we had less than 90,000 cases globally and 3,000 deaths. Today we have, just 5 months later, 18 million, over 18 million cases globally, 690,000 deaths. 19 states have more cases than this today in the US, and 15 states, unfortunately, have more deaths than this. So the pandemic has really grown. It's unfortunately undergoing a resurgence even now. We have about 65,000 cases a day in the US on average now, which is almost as many as we had back at the beginning of March into February globally. And this is just in each day. So what I talked about then and what's important, equally important or more important now, is remote collaboration and meetings through VR. This is our Paracosma office in AltSpace VR, where we've hosted a number of VR parties, as well as business meetings, daily meetings with my team. We have conference rooms, meeting rooms, this lobby area. We also have an auditorium where we have town hall meetings with all of our employees. And this allows us to stay connected. The last 4 years running, I have over 250,000 air miles, and this year maybe 25,000 or 40 before it was cut off. So we are living the dream, so to speak. We are drinking our own Kool-Aid and operating our business remotely via VR. And this is what every company will increasingly need to do. We've also donated our VR game as a free game to the public. It used to be called Unnamed VR. You're trapped in a large mansion where you have unlimited fun to do in that mansion. There's 16 rooms with the adventure room with climbing walls, zip lines, trampolines, shooting gallery, a maze that reconfigures when you go in it. Everything you can want to do in the building, but you can't leave. So we named that Shelter in Space, and we're giving it away free for those who are shut in during this pandemic. And this is really a reflection of our mission. Everything I've talked about today is a reflection of the mission that we formed over 4 years ago now. The first aspect of that is to make augmented and virtual reality as good as reality is not enough. So whether it's 360 video where you're actually filming reality or making photorealistic 3D models for virtual worlds, we want to create experiences that are similar quality, ideally indistinguishable from the real world. That's our ultimate goal. And then the next aspect is making augmented and virtual reality better than reality. And this is what we do with surgery training, with behavior therapy and so forth. You're able to recreate through VR things you cannot do in the real world safely or ethically. And this is one of the beauties and amazing capabilities of augmented and virtual reality. And finally, our mission is to make reality better through augmented and virtual reality, whether it's healthcare applications that are improving people's lives or any of the areas that you can improve through augmented and virtual reality. And this is why we co-founded with Bob Fine the VR for Good conference, which has now had 3 or 4 years. I'm losing track. And it's really a great event to highlight what augmented and virtual reality can do. And that's why we're helping companies with virtual meeting spaces, giving away our game, and working in the healthcare area as well. So that's a very high-level overview of Paracosma. We do other communications applications, training in VR, any number of applications. But in terms of our focus in healthcare, we're very active, and we have the resources and capability to help any of the other doctors, hospitals, companies that are working on cutting-edge VR applications in healthcare. We're happy to provide our services and help improve the world in that way. So thank you with that. And if any questions are out there, happy to respond. Hi, Chris.
Thanks very much. You've just been a little bit busy. Seems like quite a lot of new stuff going on, and now AARP is allowing you to talk publicly, so that's good.
Yeah, it's nice when you have big companies that are willing to let you talk about them. We have a lot of clients that are under strict NDA, and that's always frustrating. But our show reels are always about 6 months or a year behind the time because of that.
No questions coming in. Oh, actually, yeah. Do you have the link for the 360 distribution site?
It's basically a white label site. So if you go to 360.madisonmountaineering.com, you can see a version of it. They haven't updated it continually, but it gives you a sense of what's possible. And then we do it privately. We create a private application, a server, and so forth for the people who need it.
Chris, Jim, anything?
Ken, great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, Chris.
Yeah, I guess congrats also on the AARP. That's wonderful. It sounds like you're doing a lot of great work with the brain games and the mind games there. So can you speak to a little bit in terms of the healthcare focus and needs? I know you do a lot of different things across different verticals, but is there kind of an increasing pattern that you're noticing within healthcare and VR?
Yeah, I think the exciting thing is even before there was consumer VR, there was healthcare VR for the last 20, 30 years. That was one of the areas like military where people were experimenting and using this. And for the most of that time, you had a researcher, you had a few patients as guinea pigs, and that was about it. I saw great results though. Now what we're seeing is all this VR moving into healthcare settings, moving into retirement homes, rehabilitation centers, even in-home uses for eye treatments, for lazy eye, things like this. That's a really exciting example. When I was a kid, I still have lazy eye. I'm about 90+% right eye dominant. And throughout time, all you could do with that is if the child was younger than about 5, you could put a patch over the strong eye for 3 weeks and build up the weak eye. Then take off the patch, and another 3 weeks you saw double vision. And then maybe it helped, maybe it didn't. I'm still almost entirely right eye dominant. Now they've created a therapy through VR in which you can train your eyes, and for the first time in adults, you can cure lazy eye and treat lazy eye, and it's something like 67% effective in adults versus 0% in the past. And these abilities, even restoring movement to permanently paralyzed people in their legs, are really miraculous treatments that are being done by VR. And luckily, we're starting to see some of those be approved and used generally. And I think that will increase. And what we're trying to do as a company is be that bridge between the researchers who know the medicine, know what they're trying to achieve, and getting a consumer or a hospital-based application into the marketplace to create better apps, to create the models and so forth to do that. We don't have doctors on staff. We aren't, medical technicians, so we can't provide that aspect. But we're really seeing that transition accelerate. And you see it in enterprise use as well, enterprise training and so forth. Just in the last 6 to 12 months, people have moved from kicking the tires to really deploying systems. And that's what's exciting to see.
Great, thanks.
Hey Ken, it's Jim. Good to see you. I'm actually going to address a question that's in the feed here, which is: do you have a library of 3D model assets available per project? And then I'm going to build on that in a minute. But let's answer that part of it first. Sure.
We do not. In some cases, we can buy assets and models from the Unity Asset Store or other online sources. Often those aren't the finished result that we need. And so in almost every case, we're customizing something. In many of the cases, we're creating models. One of the, with digital twins, things like this, it's a very long process to get from a CAD model, which has too much detail and not enough texture, to something you can use for AR and VR. And so a lot of what we do is entirely created by hand by our artists. And because we're based in Kathmandu, Nepal for our development, our art teams, we can do that at much lower costs than a lot of providers. And so we can do custom work often at the price of adapting an existing model.
Great. So then that actually answers the first question that was there in the feed. But then the second part of that is, are you doing much work, if any, combining digital assets, right, digital models, together with real life video recording, and being able to bring those two together into a single experience?
Yeah, almost all of our artists come from the animation and special effects area. So, excuse me, their expertise is really film-based, special effects and blending things directly. All of our AR work has that component. You're blending the digital with the real. The frustration there is the AR models are usually not as high quality as we want to see for, you know, photography replacement. And so there's kind of the spectrum from consumer AR on a handset to movie-based special effects. In VR, you're a little bit more in between those because you have the full digital world, especially if you have a tethered headset. But you know, with time, with the great work of HTC and others, we're improving the quality of the devices, the performance of the devices, and all of that will continue to improve. You know, for surgery, there's some groups doing AR assistance for surgery where you're seeing MRI scan data and other things overlaid on a patient. So we're moving in that direction. There's really a trade-off between the resolution and the realism and the performance sometimes.
Sure. Let me also go ahead and talk about realism. You had mentioned haptics, and that was a kind of a recurring theme today. Is, you know, a lot about haptics, a lot about feedback from users, and be able to collect all that data, whether it's actual data that's going to be used for modeling. We have to make sure that stays safe. You touched on the haptic feedback of touch and sensory piece of things. How important do you see haptics to VR, AR, and VR going forward?
I think it's extremely important in terms of, you know, right now we have vision covered. We're pretty darn good with audio as well. You know, if you go through the senses, there have been some experiments and work with sense of smell. Unfortunately, some of those are curtailed by current regulations. And so the vaping problem has passed some regulations that don't allow you to do flavored vapors anymore. And that really killed or damaged some of the possibility for VR, scent-based VR. So what you have left is haptics. The haptics gloves are really incredible in that you have literally hundreds and hundreds of air bubbles, air pockets across your hand. And they can all be inflated and deflated in coordination with the AR experience. And so if a butterfly lands on your hand, you can feel where it lands and how it lands. Then the force feedback prevents you from closing your fingers around things. And you can represent like 5 pounds, something like this, of force feedback. And so if you get a chance to try the haptics gloves, there's really a phenomenal experience. It allows you to believe, to have that same presence with your hands that you have with your eyes and your ears. And for telepresence, for telemedicine, this will be increasingly important, right? You need to be able to touch and feel what's there. Some of the applications, you know, all of the applications you see today are based on not having the need for that because we don't have it available. When it becomes available, and the haptics gloves will be available this December, the next generation of them, Paracosma will be providing integration. We'll do APIs and integration of the haptic gloves for apps, for robotics, for VR, and so forth. So we'll be able to help with that as well.
So actually, on the olfactory side, OVR Technology is a startup out of Burlington, Vermont, that has a vapor smell product working with VR today. They've recently joined the association. They'll be presenting tomorrow morning at 9:30, kicking it off. They're one of the only companies I've come across, besides the Kickstarter one that I donated to, and doesn't look like I'm going to get a product anytime soon. So just to wrap it up briefly, Chris, Jim, any common themes, issues you saw today that you want to share or comment on?
Yeah, no, I think there are a lot of common themes around the place and time where we are right now, right? With COVID-19 and working from home, you know, the need for sanitation for our headsets with Amy Hedrick for CleanBox, you know, basically having physical therapy or rehabilitation therapy done with Miron VR, and also mindfulness with Jessica of Virtual Sandtray, and Susan Mazer for Healing Healthcare. So, and I think you also mentioned Helium as well, of course, and kicked off by Walter. But I think, Ken, you talked about how you're eating your own dog food now. You're now doing things in remote and VR. I'm just curious, how fast of acceleration or accelerant, if you will, this pandemic is causing in the XR space, in the VR space, because it's could be here to stay for a little bit longer. Could be here in basically part of our lives for the foreseeable future, but the need for it seems to be more imperative now, and you're seeing a lot of the speakers today refer to it as how we're doing new business and how that's actually impacting how they're helping patients and addressing in the healthcare industry. So I'd love to get your thoughts about that too.
Well, actually, I'll turn it back on you, Chris, a little bit, because I guess I consider you, and maybe I shouldn't, a bit of an insider on from your time with HTC and working in the hardware and working in the U.S. mainly. I mean, what were the impediments you were running into with enterprise from a large adoption? Was it more lack of applications, or cost of hardware, or something else?
Yeah, I think there's been very much of a pilot mentality that's been going on. You see some successful cases with, for example, Walmart and Striver, some with Penumbra and the Real System going out as well, that are kind of more scale up en masse. And I think it's a behavioral change, right? It's an IT infrastructure adoption curve. Certainly the cost of the hardware is going to be an impediment, and then certainly getting the ROI, right? So making sure you can demonstrate from that pilot or from that kind of POC that the ROI will get you what you want. And I think for healthcare, certainly there's a ton of research around applications of VR and how it actually can impact and benefit all manners of health indicators. And Walter did a wonderful job, of course, of summarizing that in the beginning. So I do think that there have been some leaps and bounds. And Bob, you had your own series of collaborative VR conference apps, and there's no shortage of them out there to, I think, really kind of enhance and go beyond what Zoom and Teams offer right now. So I think that we're kind of at that cusp, almost a tipping point, if you will. There are still impediments. It's hard to deploy these things remotely. It's hard to scale them up, and those addresses won't be solved overnight. But there are definitely people working on them.
Do you think corporate wellness is maybe one of the easier ways into enterprise today?
I would say that has been a good place to go into, and Trip as well as I do, but they've made some good inroads into the corporate wellness space, as does Helium, as have others. But I think it's a little bit more challenging now when everyone's remote. It's one of those things where, how do you really showcase the benefit, beyond other things that you're doing when you're not co-located in the same office. So those are questions that remain to be answered still.
Jim?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
if I can respond to Chris's question, we see it as really a make or break period for VR. In enterprise, we saw a real strong increase in training and safety training and things like this prior to COVID. And since COVID, we've seen a dramatic explosion of collaboration in VR meetings. People really have Zoom fatigue. They're tired of the postage stamps of people sitting in one spot, facing the screen. Just the Zoom thing is killing people. And the VR is an entirely different experience. If you do collaborative VR, you can move your arms, you can walk around someone, you can joke around. It's, as close to being there in person as you can get in this environment. And for the foreseeable future, even when we return to offices, we're not going to be returning to business travel very soon. We're not going to be returning to, large conferences. CES was just canceled, next year. So everything from one-on-one meetings with your coworkers where you need to touch and feel something in person or brainstorm on a whiteboard, to virtual meetings like this, to events, to conferences, there's so many conferences that I used to go to in person that I see the virtual version and I say, I don't need another Zoom meeting and to sit in front of my, no offense for these few days, Bob, but you just don't want to sit in front of your screen for so many hours at one time. And VR allows you to do it more naturally in a better way. And if you had to develop this in enterprise organically, where we were before COVID, it'd be 5-10 years. I don't know how long till we got there. With this force of a complete change of the entire world to virtual remote working and virtual conferences, if VR doesn't happen in this period, it will never happen, or the technology is not there. If we have the technology, if we have standalone headsets, if we have availability of headsets with the supply chain, if we can get them out to people, absolutely. We have big corporations that had massive offices for in-person meetings that want to create their building as a digital twin for virtual meetings. And, that will take 6 months or a year for some of these to develop, but they'll absolutely take place now when they wouldn't have previously.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me, but why aren't we doing this event in VR? And, my response is, well, it's twofold. One is I just don't think there's enough headsets out there to make it worthwhile to have the people that we want to educate in this event. I take one of our, greatest challenges for our mission from the last couple of years and next couple of years moving forward is educating the marketplace. And a lot of that, is the healthcare worker. And I think, we have to assume still today, 99% of healthcare workers have not tried VR. Maybe 89% have heard about it now, or 11% have, but 89, the vast majority still haven't tried that. And that's going to take a long time. I personally think that until there is another mass market hardware player in the space, I think we're going to be still treading water a little bit. I don't think, as much as maybe the Pico and the Lenovo headsets are good, they don't have the same gravitas as a Microsoft or Sony. Sony's got the PSVR, but they're focused on games, and Oculus, for whatever reason, continues to stay focused on gaming and consumers for the most part. I think, personally, I think HP is the dark horse that has the brand and the distribution to compete with Oculus head on, both on consumer and enterprise. But we'll see if they come out.
I think it's availability. If you look at an enterprise, they'd spend far more than $500 to $1,000 to bring someone across the country for an in-person meeting, with air travel. It's very affordable to buy a Quest, to buy an HTC headset and ship it to your employee and have them use it, even if it's a one-time event or infrequent. And so once we have enough executives trying and understanding the experience so they get what they're paying for, and enough employees that they ship, either they buy their own or they get a headset shipped to them, we're going to see a snowballing effect for the use of this. And we'll see it. The 50-person AR/VR event we mentioned, they're going entirely virtual this year. So we're meeting in a couple days to figure out how to do that as a virtual event. And, this will continue to grow. And I think, the biggest challenge has been availability of the hardware. I think if you look at it and you have to wait 6 or 8 weeks, there's just an impediment to adoption.
Yeah, but I don't think that availability is driving it all, because there's plenty of headsets out there that I think it could be escalated quicker. To me, I see two barriers. One is, how do you take an in-headset experience and make it available outside the headset? Because you do have to address the fact that not everybody has a headset, right? And that's number one. But number two is just utilization. I've spent a lot of time recently looking at Meet in VR, the Wild, as well as the great work that's being done over on just blew the mind. The name of it.
We work with Altspace.
Yeah, Altspace. That's the one. Yeah, Altspace VR. And so if if we could find a way to get more people into those experiences, executives, to your point, the executives need to see it. Or quite frankly, let's bring in all the CFOs, because as soon as a CFO sees that you can actually run a business and have a great experience in a headset, they're going to mandate it because they'd rather spend the money on that headset instead of putting somebody on a plane. So maybe we need to do a VR event for CFOs to help them really understand that it is a great communication tool.
Well, what we learned, the biggest lesson we learned from the pandemic is, the quality of your company is the people. It's not the cubicle, it's not the desk, it's not the computer so much. It's the people that are doing the work. And there's so many companies right now that have empty multi-billion dollar offices, and they're still relying on those people. If we can give the people the tools like VR headsets and enable them to do their work remotely, we'll see a tremendous difference. And Facebook has adopted a remote working policy. We'll see if they provide all their workers with Quest headsets. That would be a first touch point.
Actually, that would seem like a no-brainer.
Yep.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll call it a day. We've got 3 more coming, and I know I need to get some rest. But thank you all. Ken, great presentation. Good to see you.
Great to see you. It's been a great day, Bob. I'm sure the next few days will be great as well.
Thanks. Chris and Jim, I'll see you tomorrow. And I hope to see the rest of you tomorrow. Again, we're starting at 9:30 a.m. And Ken gave us a great segue to talk about the lack of olfactory, which is not actually the case. So we are going to hear from the CEO, co-founder of OVR Technology, Aaron Wisniewski, out of Burlington, Vermont, and building the next great wave of tech for VR. So with that, good evening, and we will see you tomorrow.
All right.
That's good.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Tomorrow.